everybody. This is episode 24 of Eat, Drink, Write, an Urban Fantasy Whiteboard. This episode, we're going to be talking about humor. I've titled it Writing Humor. It's seriously easy.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's my humor, guys. Sorry.
No. You're welcome. You're welcome.
So, I guess I should mention, can you hear that?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so they're putting on siding on our house, and we were going to podcast earlier, but they were really going to town out there, so we're trying to do it later.
Yeah, so we get dog barking and some construction sounds.
Yeah, so we're going to have some of that, but our house is going to be gorgeous when it's done. So
I told Sydney when I told her that we were going to be podcasting today and that there were going to be construction noises, I told her we could just pretend it's ambiance because we're constructing our novels.
See, humor, everybody.
There we go. It's not great humor, but it's there.
Wait till you hear my jokes this week.
Oh, good.
Okay, right. But first, how was your week this week?
It was pretty good. It's still about the same as every other week. I think things will probably pick up a bit next week because I'm officially allowed to start lab work again. But this week was more about like making sure the water valves were ready and that kind of thing. I did get another rejection letter, and this time from like a literary agency that I would love to have represent my work. So that was kind of a bummer. And then I did start rewriting Louie and Delaney.
Oh, so you stopped with the rewrite that you were doing and jumped back to this work?
No, I'm still doing both.
Okay.
I'm still working on both. So I started Louie and Delaney, and it goes really fast. Like I've already written 8,000 words of the rewrite. So and that's mostly because the story's going to stay the same. Like I want all of the story the same. I'm just, making my style more present, I guess.
I'm hoping that the one that I'm working on, my very first novel with the high fantasy, is going to go fast as well. Right now I'm in the process of rereading it because I don't even remember who all the characters are. So I've got to get through that first. Wow, they really did decide to do all this right when we started the podcast.
Yeah, it was quiet before you hit record.
Sure was. Okay. My week was this. We've had this going on all week. We are very excited about it, though. It's going to be gorgeous.
Yeah, I can't wait to see pictures.
We did run into termite problems, so that was lovely. Did I tell you that? I don't even know if I told you.
You didn't, but I kind of wondered if you would, because that house is very old. And
we just had it in one little section in between the two garage doors. So all we had to do was get a termite person out here, and they baited traps all the way around the house. And then the new stuff that they're putting on around the house is going to keep new bugs from coming in. It repels the new bugs, and then the traps will kill the old ones.
Nice.
So that was exciting. And I've been working on getting court up and running because we're running out of time. They did do another extension of the judicial emergency through June, but I had already planned not to have court in June anyway. I've just got way too many defendants to deal with in court. So we're ramping up for July, and that's coming up fast. So I'm working on it. We got a telephone for your dad's mother.
Right.
So because we haven't been able to see them, it's been really hard not to see family, and they are not technologically savvy. So we went ahead and bought them an iPhone so that they can use data. They have no internet, so they can use their data, which you can get some data at their house. They live in the boonies.
Yeah, but I feel like every time I go there, I do have decent connection. Like I'm able to use my data.
I'm hoping so. So I had to set up, she doesn't even know how to turn a phone on. So I had to do an instruction manual and do all of that. And I put pictures of all the different apps, and I'm hoping it's simple enough to get her through. So I worked on that. And so I got absolutely no writing done. I am working on reading. We had a fellow listener who wanted us to review his books and his book, and he sent it to me. And so I've started reading that. You ordered one. I don't know if you've had a chance to even start it.
I did order one. I have it on my Kindle, but no, I have not had a chance to vote on it.
So I haven't even been able to read this week. That's a little depressing. But what are you eating and drinking?
So yesterday was a good food day for me, and I ended up making homemade whole wheat banana bread with chocolate chips.
Oh
Um,
my Lord.
it's amazing. It's pretty fantastic. And then I am drinking a tea called Highland Morn, and it's another one of the Peacock Tea Room teas, and it's really good. I'm really enjoying it.
Is it a black tea?
Yes.
That sounds like, I will like the name of it.
Yeah. No, it's
Is it-
delicious. It has like it almost not quite citrus, but almost like a lighter kind of taste. It's really good. I enjoy it.
Nice. Okay. Well, forget the tea stuff. I am straight into the alcohol today. I'm drinking, and I finally decided I'm going to name this because it has become something that I do keto wise. It's got 0 carbs. It's absolutely 0 carbs.
Oh, lovely.
So, and it's really good and it's cute. So it is, I'm calling it the right choice, WRITE, the right choice, because I always make them for the podcast. So this is my new drink, and it's basically just orange liqueur and vodka and lime, and it's delicious and cool and refreshing and not heavy.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
So I'm drinking that, and I've already had most of one. So
fantastic. Good.
And I brought refills.
Oh, you're prepared.
It's been one of those days, people, so just be aware.
Wow.
And then I made deviled eggs with bacon on them.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got those, although I don't know that I'm going to be able to eat them. They're kind of messy, so I don't know if I can eat them while I'm talking or not. But
yeah.
That is my plan, and I made extras. So your father's up there and Riley's up there. They're going to be gone by the time I get up there, I'm sure.
It takes me, 45 minutes to get home? Let me,
They're tasty. So that's my food and drink of the week. Oh, and I did want to tell everybody, we had kind of talked about it last time. You had mentioned the Eat, Drink, Right fabric with our logo on it. I actually ordered some, and it's supposed to come in tomorrow. So I think what I'm going to do is make masks that if people want to leave reviews, I'll send them a mask for free.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, we'll make that part of our merch. Yeah. So that should be coming in tomorrow. So I should be able to start making masks with that. So I'm excited about it. Okay, so you ready for my jokes?
I am.
You're probably not, but
okay.
Since we are talking about humor this week, I thought that I would pull some dad jokes because dads are known for their special type of humor.
100%.
Okay. So, why don't eggs tell jokes? They'd crack each other up.
Stop.
And then the next one, I don't trust stairs. They're always up to something.
For those of you not watching video, she just got an expert eye roll.
Okay, moving on. Humor in novels. I'm sure they've probably said, okay, I don't need to hear from these girls about their humor.
Like, no, they don't know what they're talking about. Let's skip this
clearly.
We'll do our own research for that.
Oh, clearly. Yeah, humor, it's an odd topic for me because it's something I don't know how to tell you what I do. I just do it.
Right.
It just, my characters, it just happens. And one of my books, my newest one, Frickin' Fairies, is humor. I mean, it is humor all the way through. And so I was trying, when I was doing this, trying to figure out what exactly is it? How do you do it? I don't know how to tell someone how to do it.
Right.
But it was an interesting research to talk about it. So humor is something that we have in our everyday lives, even in the darkest of times. I mean, humor is always a part of humans' lives. Humor is found in all kinds of books, even those books that are not funny books. They're not supposed to be funny, but there are always some kind of humor throughout that, just because that's what humans are.
Yeah.
You know, how often do you hear someone describe their loved one as being funny, or, you know, one of their best things that I like about them is their sense of humor. So humor is important to people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I see the most, you know, like talking with friends or whatever, and, you know, we're talking about dating, and they're like, oh, well, what do you look for in a significant other? And it's always, oh, well, he's got to make me laugh, or she's got to make me laugh, like whatever. Like they've got to be funny.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a huge aspect to what people look for, I think, in other people.
I think so too. Yeah, it plays a huge role in every book. I don't know that there's, I mean, even Shakespeare has humor.
Yeah.
You know, it's necessary, I think, for every book. Even if you're writing a serious book, I think you're going to have some elements of humor.
Yeah.
So why use humor? What does it do for your book? It can provide comic relief. We always have those side characters that are the funny ones that, you know, you build up to this really tense moment, and then there's the comic relief to get your reader through that moment.
To let them breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like just to like drop them, you know, so you're on this edge where they're full of this tension and they're on the edge of their seat. And it's, you know, you can't have an entire book that's like that, because then your reader's going to be exhausted.
Yes.
By the time they finish it, and they'll be like, well, that was like a really, I don't know if I can read another book like that again. Like me speaking specifically, I guess I would definitely be like, well, that was a lot. It's going to be like, liked it probably, but it's probably going to be a bit too much without comic relief.
Yeah, it helps to bring that tension down. You can't keep tense like that through the entire thing.
Right.
It also makes our characters relatable. And when we like, as humans, we like humor. So if our character is funny, that helps us relate to them.
Yeah.
It can also show the relationship between characters. It's a good way to build character development and relationships, because if they're teasing each other, then you know that they're comfortable with each other. There's a closeness there. If it's really harsh humor, then that might show that there's some kind of tension between them, or they're rivals, or, you know, so you can do a lot. Even if it was funny, it might be a bit true. You know, whatever they're saying might be hurtful, even though it's ha 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 funny.
Right. I want to break in here really quick and just point out, you know, I have your notes in front of me, and you wrote the word comfortableness. Is that a word?
I don't know. It didn't come up as not being a word, but it sure looks funny.
It sure does. Okay. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. My note says it shows closeness, comfortableness. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm a writer.
Yes.
I think I just made up a word, but that might be a real word. It didn't say it was spelled wrong. So
it's a strange word. How about that?
It is. So it also keeps the reader turning the pages. That's just something, just like, you know, your plot is meant to keep the reader turning the pages. Humor can be used that same way.
Right.
It can be used to show backstory. You know, remember that time that Joe, whatever, and it could be a funny story, but it gets that backstory into the book that you're trying to get across without saying, oh yeah, once upon a time we did this.
Right.
It can be used to foreshadow. Did you have something on foreshadowing, or is that later?
I do have something on it, but later.
Okay. And then it can be used to reveal your character's voice. I must say, my Beck, her voice is very funny.
Yeah.
She comes across, and her voice is very strong in Frickin' Fairies, and a lot of that has to do with her humor.
Right. I mean, think about typical urban fantasy heroines who are just like snarky, and like that's their sense of humor, is like they're very snarky and they have like a dry sense of humor, and are very sarcastic or whatever.
You can use it to get your theme across. We talked about themes last week, I think. Or it can just be for simple entertainment. It just is funny.
Yeah.
So how do you do this? And that was what I was struggling to try to help talk about. How do you do that? How do you make something funny? And what I read was, you listen to stand-up comics. When they tell their story, they start off by laying the foundation. They have these long sentences, and they're painting the picture. And then as they get closer and closer to that punchline, the sentences get shorter and shorter and shorter, and then bam, there's the punchline.
Right. Yeah.
So we can do the same thing in our writing in novels is, just the sentence structure can be used to get that humor across. Hyperbole and exaggeration are funny. That's a way to add them.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is like, someone's being overly dramatic about a wound that they have or something like that. And so the person who's like treating them is like, oh, don't worry about it. It's just a scratch. And they're like, I don't know. I might die.
I might die.
I think I'm dying kind of thing. Yeah. Or, an exhausted character. What?
I was going to say that is a great way to show character development as well. The weenie, we talked about anti-heroes. Like I can see a hero that's not got the traditional heroic, my finger's cut, I'm gonna die, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I think a lot of these are actually probably a good way, and you mentioned it before, to get across character and character voice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Okay, where was I? Oh, you had another example.
Oh, I did. Like if you have like an exhausted character and they're like just exasperated with everyone and they're like, you know what, I need a drink or 10. Go from there. And that just kind of that exaggeration kind of gets across the point of like where your character is at, what they're feeling. And it's a bit humorous. So
it is. And it makes you as the reader connect to them. You're like, I've had those days. Like I'm having one today, honestly.
Absolutely.
I've already filled up my glass with my refill already. So there you go.
Perfect.
Surprise is another way to get humor in there. Things that are unexpected, that shock, that little shock factor for your reader. They're reading along, and like the example I read was the Rule of Three. This was on the Masterclass website. David Sedaris, he was talking about you put two things that go together and then add something that doesn't. So like, can I get you coffee, tea, a divorce? And that's funny because the reader is expecting the next word to be something, along those lines.
Yeah.
And that makes it funny. So they call that the Rule of Three, which I had never heard of that before.
Yeah, I hadn't either.
But totally unexpected and inappropriate things for the time and place and the setting that you're in can be funny. Speak it out loud. Is it as funny when you read it out loud as it was when you were writing it and you were thinking in your head and chuckling? When you read it out loud, you're like, oh, that's not funny.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you go to tell a story that happened and you're like laughing, and then as you're saying it out loud, you're like, oh, this is not very funny.
This isn't, maybe I should be quiet.
I'll just stop.
Particular kinds of comedy appeal to different people in different age groups. So you can layer in different kinds of comedy. Like I am not a big slapstick fan.
Right.
But a lot of people are. You've got that teenage boy humor, that, the farts and that kind of thing. That's just so funny to that age group. And, layer those things in. Don't keep your style of humor all the same all the way through necessarily. Right. I mean, you can, it might work.
Right.
But be aware of the different kinds as well. Slapstick, sarcasm, witty parodies, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then satire also, because satire is a big one that's, it's meant to be not necessarily humorous in the like, I'm gonna bust a gut laughing kind of way, but it's still, amusing in the way to like look at something from a different light. And then, I think it's important too to look at your audience, but also to think about what you find funny. Because you got to bring in your own humor in order to, because you got to find it funny too. If you're going to try to write humor, you got to be able to find it funny too. So
it's just scary for my readers. As they listen to this podcast, they're like, I just don't know about that girl.
Oh, well, yeah.
So you can make the rocks we always talk about throwing at our characters. You can make that humorous as well. Make these things ridiculous. Like in our book that we never did finish together, the kitten book.
Kitten. Yeah.
And she had issues with certain things, and we made them as absolutely ridiculous as they possibly could, and she had to get herself out of those things. That really was funny. Those things we had her happen to her.
No, it's
Um,
fantastic. I think you do the same thing with frickin' fairies. Beck,
I
poor Beck. Like the the situations you put her in, and the way that you have her react to them is just like, oh, Beck, oh,
I still laugh out loud. I laughed out loud when I was writing it. I laugh out loud when I read it. Beck is hilarious, and the situations she finds herself in are hilarious. This
poor
poor
Beck.
normal person finding herself in the world of magic, knowing nothing about it. So the reader is finding all these things out, and as the reader's watching her, she's making these logical assumptions that we would make based on what we know as normal humans. And it
Right.
turns out to be not at all that way in the Fae world, and just funny. It's very, very funny.
It's fantastic.
Um,
Oh yeah, and then on that note, I wanted to kind of point out, you can make situations ironic or coincidental, that kind of leave your character going, "Wait, are you serious? Like, you got to be kidding me! We're not doing this. This can't happen this way," and it does. And so like
mhm.
that is also a way to bring in humor. And you're just like, your poor character is gonna be like, "Are you kidding me? Like, can we not? Like, can this happen a different way?"
Or you can have someone say, "Wouldn't it be funny if this and this happened?" And then
And then
it
it does.
does.
Yes.
Let's see, where am I at? Oh, think about the deeper meaning. Why, funny isn't just a light skimming of the top. Even my Beck novel, which is a very light fantasy novel, you got to look at why it's funny. What makes it funny? Like, um, is there some truth to it that makes it funny?
Right.
I can't think of any examples. I meant to go back and write that down. But, look at why it's funny, because some things are not funny in certain circumstances that might be funny in another circumstance.
Right. Yeah.
So just think about the deeper meaning of that humor that you're trying to get across.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, the funniness needs to support the plot, not the other way around. So
Yes.
don't go into this going, "I'm going to write a funny book," and force that down.
To
It
be
should,
funny. Right.
yeah, it's going to come out through your plot, through the voice, through the characters. It's just going to happen. My character interaction between the fairies and Beck are hilarious, and the
Yeah.
things that poor Beck. I still remember her hallucination. She didn't know she was hallucinating, and then assumed, because she had been before, that this was a hallucination
Oh,
too.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
That said, though, you can also, like, if you do come across like a funny situation that could be a funny situation, you can set it up with foreshadowing.
mhm.
So I found an example where in this one piece, there was this woman who was driving recklessly to get her daughter, who was in labor, to the hospital, and she asks her husband to park the car once they get to the hospital. They end up leaving the hospital shortly because it ends up being a false labor, ha ha ha. And there's an officer waiting by the car when they come outside, and the woman's like, "Oh, I ran all those stoplights. I didn't stop for the stop signs." And then, we expect her to get all these tickets for driving recklessly. And instead, they get a ticket because her husband parked the car by a fire hydrant.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
that's unexpected. And
right.
unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like they foreshadowed the ticket, but it was for a reason that they didn't expect.
Yes. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Along those lines, let's see. Use of flawed or questionable logic is funny.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Beck has a lot of that. I mean, and it's logical to her from where she's from, but it's not logical in the Fae world. And so
Right.
it's really funny.
It does, because it makes everyone stop and just go, what? Like, are you crazy? Like, can't wait. Just run that by me one more time. Let me make sure I heard you correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get humor in stylistically, the manner of the delivery, the tone, there's a lot of ways to make things funny.
Right.
And the timing is really important. I think any stand-up comedian would tell you that timing is everything.
Yeah, if you get the timing wrong, then you're probably not gonna get across like what you're trying to get across with your humor. I think word choice is also important. And then you know, because like you don't want to use like very dark language if you're trying to be funny, unless it's for dark humor. You know,
that's a good point, because Frickin' Fairies is a very light, easy to read novel, whereas the Trick story, where she's the demon hunter, there's humor in there, and she has humorous moments, but it is very sarcastic humor. And so the words that I use to describe that book are totally different than the words that are in Frickin' Fairies. These are light, easy to read words, and these are heavier words.
Right.
And even in the humorous scenes.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a really good example for your books, because those two are very, very different stylistically, like you were talking about. Also, we missed a section back.
Oh, did I skip something?
Yeah, back at the, put two things together.
It might have been in between the two drinks that I had.
Oh, that's fair.
Okay, go ahead.
Like put two things together that don't usually go together. And so I think this would fit for character personalities. And so the first thing I thought of when I was reading your notes, I was like, oh, one of my favorite humorous scenes is in the Fever series by Karen Moning.
Oh, yeah.
And Barons, who is this big, tough, macho guy, and he's like he's all business and don't fuck with me, no. And he's just like, he's arguing with the main character, Mac, at some point. And they get into this argument that devolves into a toddler argument. And they go, you did this. And she's like, no, I didn't. And he's like, yes, you did. He's, no, I didn't. And it just is the most hilarious thing, because he's just this big alpha male is how people describe him. And you just wouldn't expect him to be devolved into this toddler type situation. And, he gets exasperated with it. So yeah, I thought that was a good example of like two conflicting personalities also being able to bring out humor in a work.
Her books are all, you should study her books. You're not going to be able to, because as soon as you pick it up, you're going to be sucked into the story. But she does really well with getting the humor in there, even though there's horrible things happening. There are still, tongue-in-cheek, funny moments going on. And
very much so.
She is brilliant, as we said.
Yeah. I do have one more tip.
Okay.
And I found that this was actually a really good idea, even though I had never really thought about it when writing my own novels. And I think I use it, but it's use recurring humor. So humor, like jokes that you use throughout the entire novel or series, and it'll make your readers feel as if they're in on an inside joke.
Like that. That's a very, very, very good point.
Yeah, and Patricia Briggs does this a lot. She does this with the Mercy Thompson novels, and it's been a long time since I read her Alpha and Omega series, but I'm sure she does it there too, where they just use, she brings up the same humor from a book 3 books ago, and you're like, oh, I remember that scene, it was so funny, and it's still funny now because she's used it again.
And like you said, it brings the reader in like we're part of that inside joke, and that's a very good technique you want to do for your readers. That's a good point. Good point. Yeah, she's another one you could study on how to do that kind of thing. Mercy is hilarious. I mean, she's in these horrible situations, and her mind is just funny. She, oh, bless her heart.
Yes.
She's amazing.
She's fantastic.
Comedy is subjective. I know I have a weird sense of humor. I know I'm weird, guys. So just make sure that your beta reader goes through it and thinks it's funny too, because something that I might just think is the funniest thing ever may not really be. So, just run it by other people.
Devil's advocate, though, if you find it funny, the odds are that someone else does.
Somebody will. Yeah. I like to, Daddy is a real hard beta reader because he never laughs out loud. Never. And so he'll read a scene that I think was funny and he doesn't laugh. And I'm like, oh, it's awful. He's like, no, that was funny. And I'm like, but you didn't laugh. He's like, I don't ever laugh.
I don't really laugh out loud when reading that much either. It depends on I think the ones that get me the most when I laugh out loud are surprise humor. Like that,
Mhm.
like if it surprises me, then I will burst out laughing. Because if I am
Mhm.
surprised by it, then I don't but if I'm like thinking too hard and I can see the joke coming, then I'm like, yes, that was really great and really funny, but I'm probably not gonna laugh out loud.
Laugh out loud. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Amanda Lee books, the Midwest Wicked Witches of the Midwest, maybe.
I know what you're
Hilarious.
talking about, but
Absolutely hilarious. And your father read those and loves them too. But he
yeah,
doesn't read it, he doesn't laugh out loud with them either. So I feel
yeah,
vindicated because she is very, very funny.
yeah,
Really well done. The humor in that one is interrelationships. There's three sisters, and there's sibling rivalry. There's an aunt who's crazy, and there's always funny things going. And of course, magic is involved. So
right,
excellent series. Very, very, very funny. Definitely lighter, which brings me to dark humor.
right,
Yes. So often humor isn't about making light of a serious situation. It's more about how a person handles that serious situation.
right.
A lot of times what's going on isn't funny, but those people that giggle when they're not supposed to giggle,
It's
everybody
me,
knows why.
me.
Yeah, it's just you laugh at inappropriate moments, but that can be kind of funny in and of itself, even though what's happening isn't funny.
Oh, it's
Um,
the worst. I have been in situations where, I'm in a serious meeting and, we're talking about this one person's in trouble because they did something that they shouldn't have or something like that. And it might just be like two or three of us and it just happens to be my coworker or something. I'm trying to think of a specific example, but I can't. And, they're getting a stern talking to, and I'm just like over here, like trying not to laugh. And I'm like, I should not be laughing. It's like, I'm so sorry. I'm just nervous. I'm nervous. What if they start yelling at me too? I'm just a nervous laugher. I'm sorry.
that's funny. Yeah, in my book with Trick, which it is harder for me to write a dark story because I am an optimist and I believe in people.
Yeah.
And to have her in this horrible life that she is in is hard for me, but it's fascinating. The other thing that's fascinating about that book is that I'm writing it in first person present tense, which is another. It is a challenging book, and I absolutely love writing it.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is she's had a hard life. She faces death constantly, and so her sense of humor is dark.
Yeah.
The things that she finds funny are dark and a
Right.
little bit twisted, whereas Beck would probably be horrified if she met Trick. She would not know what to do with Trick. I mean, Trick's
Yeah.
sense of humor, she would be going, oh my God.
Beck would be like, it was so nice to meet you. I'm gonna walk out that door now. And Trick would be like,
Um,
okay, bye.
but her situation growing up and what that world has molded her sense of humor, just like Louie's sense of humor and Louie and Delaney
Yeah.
has been molded by her life. She's
Yeah.
still funny, and there are still funny things that happen, and she's sarcastic, but it's a different type of laughter and fun than the light stuff.
Right.
Her
Yeah.
humor is not a light humor because she has gone through so much.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas
I agree.
Delaney can still get a good laugh out of something, a dad joke.
Or Connor Socks,
Or Connor Socks, yeah.
Right.
So, their situations are going to dictate what type of humor they have. So keep that in mind when you're writing as well. Don't have your character having an inappropriate sense of humor. Tie it in somehow. Make sure it works.
Yeah, I agree with that because I feel like humor a lot of the time is just it's a coping mechanism for some people where they don't know how to deal with the situation. Kind of like laughing at an opportunity, like don't laugh at like horrible things, right?
Right.
But no matter what type, I feel like no matter the type of humor, it can be light or dark humor. It could still be a coping mechanism for something, which is interesting when you are writing your books and your characters and putting them in situations where they could die. What are they going to start laughing? Like, are they going to laugh because they're nervous? And that kind of thing. I think it adds to the realism of characters.
I think so too. It's just, this was a very difficult topic because I have a book that is humor. I mean, I would describe it as a humor urban fantasy,
Right.
but I can't tell you how I did it.
I think that's where bringing in your own humor into a book is really helpful. I think that's the biggest tip is like, what do you find funny? And then like incorporate that into your writing.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't try to write something that, you know, I'm not a huge fan of comedy movies. Like, I don't like you, I don't like slapsticky stuff. Not all comedies are slapsticky, but like, I don't enjoy that type of humor. So I would never try to write it because I just wouldn't be able to. I don't think I would be good
It's
at it.
like the romantic comedies. I do want to write a romance, and I think the best ones have humor. I think of Kresley Cole.
Oh, yeah.
The humor, Nix, that whole character is nothing but humor. Excellent, but I don't normally like to watch rom-coms, as you call them, but I can, and when I do, I get some, you know, those movies with Justin Timberlake in them. For some reason, I love those. And, you know, I'm always teasing your father because I'm thinking date night movie, you know, action adventure. Let's go see some blood, horror. And he's going, you know, let's go and watch a Justin Timberlake movie. You know, which is what normal date, you know, you're supposed to get in the romantic feeling, and I'm wanting to go watch zombies. So
yeah, horror movies.
I know I'm weird. I know. I think that's all I've got on humor.
I think that's all I have too. I do have an interview question though.
Okay.
What's your favorite type of humor to use in your writing? So we've talked about types a little bit, like sarcastic and like light humor and dark humor.
I think I really do like the light humor because I'm such a light person. I believe in people. I believe in good. You know, Beck is my favorite book by far that I've written. The humor in there, and it does use a lot of surprise.
Yeah.
Surprise from Beck's point of view because she's a normal human like us. And so when her assumptions are, you know, when you do this, then this happens. And that's not how it is in the magical community. It's surprising. And then these fairies, they do things on purpose for her, just to watch her fumble through it, knowing what she is going to do. I mean, funny, just funny. Yeah. And so that's my favorite. Beck is probably my favorite novel, and it is my lightest, funniest novel.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun too. The poor woman goes through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think mine is dry, sarcastic humor. I really enjoy bringing that in because, you know, a lot of the time it's just, you know, my characters are fed up with whoever they're dealing with, and they're like, "Excuse me, no, you can." You know, whatever.
Mac is definitely dry, sarcastic humor. She's hilarious too, though. And even though I find that book funny, but there's horrible things happening in it. But there's still, it's not the light, fluffy, but it's still funny. And her humor, I just love her.
Yeah.
And I connect with her because I'm like, snicker, snicker. That's what I would think too. You know, I would say something like that, or maybe I wouldn't say it out loud. You know, and she does.
Right. Yeah, I feel like Aiden is less, I mean, she's sarcastic, but she is more direct. Like, she will tell you to your face, like, this is what I think of you. And that's like kind of, it's not quite her humor, but it is humorous in the way that she does it, I think. But I think sarcasm is, well, first of all, that's my humor. I am a very sarcastic person. So I think writing it just comes naturally to me, and I think it's the most fun to put in there because, like, it perplexes other characters, it brings out your characters' personality, it brings out their
develop your plot, you develop your characters, you develop their relationships, all through that humor.
Yeah,
that reminds me of I had a judge that used to sit on the bench, and everybody was afraid of him, and he was kind of scary, but I found him really, really funny.
Yeah.
He had this really, really, really dry sense of humor, so much so that, you know, the deputies weren't sure if he was kidding or not when he would say something. And I would break out laughing, and everybody's going, "Oh my God, she's going to go to jail. They're looking at the deputies, they're looking at the judge," and I'm just laughing. He has my older brother's sense of humor, and so Uncle Cliff.
Yes, yeah.
And so he would say that, and I would think it's hilarious, and it was hilarious. And so he didn't know what to do with me. He used to make women cry, women attorneys cry.
Yeah.
Had an associate who every time she went in front of him, she came back crying.
Oh.
And I'm laughing. I'm thinking he's the greatest thing since sliced bread because I think he's just so funny. And the deputies are going, "Are we going to arrest her? Let's get out our taser."
Should I go ahead and get ready?
And I'm just laughing. And so that judge did not know what to do with me, but I find him extremely funny. But it is a very dry humor, and kind of, and he does it with that deadpan face, just like Uncle Cliff. And so I knew he was kidding because he's just like my brother. And so I had more of a brother relationship with him, and everybody else was terrified of him.
Yeah, I have to be careful with it because, like, especially when I meet new people, because people who know me by this point are very much, they're like, "Oh, that's just seriously something," like, and they'll laugh because they know that I'm kidding and it's fine. There was one time, I work at a university, and there was a new student who was coming in. No, it was a student who was leaving, and I went and talked to her because I had to clean out her desk for her because it was just like random stuff that didn't really belong to her, so I was dealing with it.
Okay.
And she was like, "Oh, so I need to leave all my lab notebooks here. Please don't throw these away. I'll come back for them." And I was like, "Oh no, those are going in the trash." And her eyes got so big, and she was like, "No, I can't." And I was like, I'm kidding. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm kidding. They're fine. I will make sure that they're here." She was like, "Okay, thank you." I was like, "I'm so sorry."
Yeah. Well, I raised you, so to have it's understanding that you've got an odd sense of humor as well.
Yeah.
I don't think your sense of humor is like mine though.
Even no, I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think you've got a lot of your father in you.
Yeah, I think so.
He has that dry sense of humor too, which I find hilarious.
Yeah.
Part of why I married him. You're talking about you look for humor in your spouse. He is very funny to me, and he does have your type of sense of humor where it's that dry. You don't quite know if he's kidding or not. Yeah.
Yeah, poor people who I meet, like, just goodness.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening. Don't forget, we do still have some free merch. I'm going to add the face masks to it if you all are interested in that. I'll get some made and put up. Let's see. Go to our website, eatdrinkrightpodcast.com. You can find everything about us there. We've got links to the podcast there. We've got, links to the YouTube, links to Buzzsprout, links to Spotify. All kinds of little tabs. Sometimes we'll promise things in episodes, and I try to put those up there. Or you can contact us there. Our email is there. We're now on video, obviously, with the YouTube. Tell us what you want us to talk about. What did you say?
I was making fun of, quote, the YouTube.
Oh, the YouTube, like the Facebook.
Facebook and the Google.
I think I said the Twitter the other day, and Riley was like,
"Oh, man.
Mom." And I'm like, I didn't mean it. I know better than that. It just came out that way. She's like, right.
Sure.
Yeah. All our social media, speaking of Twitter, is there. We got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I try to post on that. We do have a Patreon, which is where you can go to help support us. That is patreon.com/EDW-podcast, patreon.com. Any help that you could give us would be great. Send jokes. Need help with jokes.
Yeah, give her some fuel.
Yeah, let us know what you all want us to talk about too. We've got lots and lots of ideas, but if there's anything, sometimes I'll see on Twitter an idea someone asked about voice or something. I'm like, oh, we can do an episode on that.
Yeah.
So let us know. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, guys.